Hi there, and welcome to another edition of Resources Plugged In. I'm your host, Keir Reynolds, and this is a podcast that's at the intersection of mining and finance. Today, we're lucky enough to have Gary Thompson, co-founder, president, chairman, CEO of Brixton Metals. How you doing, Gary?
I am doing well, Keir. Good to see you again.
Yeah, it's been a while, but some things don't change. You're steering the ship here at Brixton, and looks like you got a heck of a project that we're gonna jump into here and have you explain. But boy, golly, you've got the tiger by the tail here.
Some days I wonder, but yeah, I think we're starting to have some fun here. It's never looked so good for us, so we're drilling away.
Excellent, and obviously that's one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on the show. Today, our theme is really kind of the role of mining and kind of an electrified future. Obviously, with your background, which I'd love for you to dive into, you've had a lot of experience. You've been involved in oil and gas, alternative energy, where I originally met you, in geothermal, and now in mining. Obviously, with some going after some critical minerals that are very important in an electrified future and decarbonization. Some big themes kind of going on in the world today. So obviously thought it'd be great to get you on. For those of my viewers that don't know who you are, would you mind sort of explaining a bit about your background and how you're here at Brixton?
Sure. Yeah, well, I'm a geologist by training, and I guess I stumbled into mining. Most of my experience is actually in mineral exploration, and so I kind of stumbled into it with a friend that needed some help to go dig some samples, soil samples up in the mountains. And I got out there and I immediately fell in love with it. I mean, you're outside working, getting paid to hike around, and motorbikes and helicopters and all sorts of fun stuff like that. So I thought, wow, this is great. I get paid to do this stuff. This is pretty amazing. And then I got into prospecting. It's like, okay, how do you find this stuff? And then you go find some gold, and then you're like, okay, well, where's the gold come from? And it sort of just piqued my interest, as I evolved into it. And when the industry was a bit of a downturn back in the 90s, when gold went from 400 to 250, the sector was pretty much on standstill for about a decade there. But I went back and actually got a geology degree out of it, and took some soft rock stuff, which led me to into some oil and gas work out of university. The mining was still in a bit of a slump. So got into oil and gas for about 5 years. So did that, and that was a great experience in Alberta and most of the Western U.S. basins. And and then kind of got when mining started picking up again, jumped back into some mining stuff, exploration. I was out at Nova Gold at Galore Creek there for a couple of years.
Wow.
That was a tremendous experience. I've always kind of gravitated back to mining, and even again now, and then when I finished the oil and gas stuff, I was working on a geothermal development company, where we met. Built that up from basically a startup, and the company was sold in 2010. And then started Brixton as a co-founder with Cale Moody. And it's interesting that when we started Brixton, gold was, of course, peaking. That was just before the peak of the gold price, the last run up in 2010-11. So here we are, and now it's kind of morphed into this big copper play. So it's been an interesting journey, and lots of fun, lots of good experience on the way, and just trying to unlock the value.
Excellent. Well, maybe you could give a little bit of an overview on Brixton. You talked about starting it with Cale, and you guys are still both directly involved in it. And I think you've expanded significantly your project portfolio, and you've got a pretty interesting corporate shareholder. So I won't give it all away. Maybe I'll let you sort of explain what you've got. Could you give everybody a bit of an overview on Brixton?
Sure. Yeah. Brixton started 2010, listed company. Thorn was our flagship. That was our listing property. And it has grown tremendously. And I'd say for people that maybe follow Brixton 5-10 years ago, this is not the same story, same Brixton today. Of course, back in 2015 when we got listed, it was great because it was right at the peak. But then it was like this for for half the company's history. I remember 2015 was pretty depressing in the junior space, and nobody wanted to hear a junior mining story. But 2016 came along and we turned a corner, and there's a lot more excitement back into the space, and we anticipated a much bigger boom. But if there's one thing I've learned about these booms and busts in the cycle, and I'm actually excited about this time in the market. While lots of people may be complaining about how tough it is, this is when opportunities are created. And we were successful really in the bottom. I would say 2015 was the bottom. And 2016 came along. We started to assemble assets because we're still close to the bottom of the market. But then, so we expanded. We got a high grade silver, past producing silver mine in Ontario, which we're now looking to monetize. We've had some good success on some amazing, spectacular high grade silver and cobalt. And then
when you say spectacular, what does that mean?
I mean, when you get silver numbers in percent, I think we've had some as high as 18% silver, which is just off the chart grades. Like native silver, pure silver in the rock. So, if the viewers don't know, I think it's like 30% of the world's silver mines are actually native silver. Most of it's a byproduct of other minerals and metals. Yeah, so that's a pretty interesting, exciting, high grade silver opportunity. Then we picked up the Hog Heaven project in Montana. That was again more of a silver play. That was a past producer of high grade silver, silver, gold, and copper. And then we also acquired the Atlan Goldfields project, which was a old, it's still a placer mining camp. And in fact, they've been pulling gold out of there since the Yukon Gold Rush in the late 1800s. And we picked that up as a view of, well, nobody's really done sufficient hard work exploration to find the source of all this gold. And it's not falling from the sky. And the way I describe it is it's a 1,000 square kilometer area where you've got gold coming out of all the drainages. So you don't need to be a geologist to figure out, well, that's a big gold system. What's going on there? And it took us about 2.5, almost 3 years to assemble the claim package. It's a big area and lots of prospectors and lots of companies in there. So that was the idea for us, was to expand into a booming metals market. But I'd say the last 3 years or so we've pivoted and are now looking to monetize what we're calling our non-core assets and really focus on Thorn. Also, about 2018, the BC Government Geologist Yard, BCGS, published a open file report, and what they did is they took all their regional geochem samples, some 80,000 samples, and they reprocessed those samples for copper porphyry weighted sums. It's just a calculation they run through on the numbers, and it basically, and you can go download that report, open file report, and it lit up a bunch of areas in the province for like a contour map, high, low potential. And the area that we were working at Thorn was lit up, but there was a huge anomaly to the south of where we were working most of the last 10 years perhaps, lit up as one of the largest, highest ranking porphyry anomalies in the province. And it was open ground for the most part. We staked up as much as we could. And then since then, we've subsequently acquired 3 different land packages from other explorers to assemble this now 2,880 square kilometers. It's a bit ridiculous, and it's massive and tremendous exploration. From an exploration geologist perspective, it's an amazing opportunity in front of us. And so we're having lots of fun exploring that. But I would say the other thing is, for the other assets that we have, we acquired those for specific reasons, and they're still valid in that there's good opportunities for gold, copper, silver, depending on which project you're looking at. But we were successful in attracting Robert Friedland's team on the Hog Heaven project, which is an amazing, unique opportunity. And they see the big scale copper potential on that project. So they took that company public recently. I think they're now a $1.8 billion company. And under our earn-in agreement, Ivanhoe Electric needs to spend $40 million US to acquire 75% of the project and pay Brixton $4.5 million US. So they're about I guess halfway through that phase one, if you will. They're drilling right now, so that's really encouraging. And they recently published some results. I think they came out with about 311 meters of about a gram of gold equivalent. They're still in the upper part of the high sulfidation part of the system, and it looks like a big copper porphyry at depth that's lurking. And the reason I say that is we see evidence of increasing copper grades downhole, but we're also getting these mineralized porphyry fragments in some of the diatreme zones, which are coming from the porphyry. So I think there's a unique opportunity, and that's part of the exploration game is we can see significant upside on a project that we're still going to have 25% of it once they've earned in and hopefully made the big discovery. And yeah, we'll see how that plays out. But that's certainly one to keep an
Maybe
eye
you'll be changing the name to Copper Heaven from Hog Heaven,
on.
huh?
Right? Not a bad one.
Yeah, that sounds tremendous. You've got a well capitalized, world class company and team that are earning in, spending their it's the OPM, other people's money. So you're going to get a huge amount of exploration sort of upside on that, as well as they'll be paying you some cash as part of, I guess, the terms as they can carry on, if they carry on with the terms of the earn-in. So
Mm-hmm.
congrats on such a tremendous deal, especially in a bit of a harder market. Imagine if it was a raging sort of bull market. Wow. So, anyways, good job
Yeah,
there.
thanks for that.
In terms of like Thorn, you mentioned it's not really exactly like the listing property of be able to expand to the land package significantly. Could you just talk a little bit about like where it's located and I was looking at some of the recent drill holes. You're getting like football fields of like mineralization. Maybe you could just sort of explain a little bit about a bit more about the project and really kind of the significance of what you're drilling.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, it's what we've recognized is that it's a real porphyry district, copper gold. And I guess where it is, it's located in Northwest BC. The closest town is actually Juneau, Alaska. Even though we're in BC, we're not that far from U.S. Tidewater. I think we're about maybe 60K to Tidewater from the bottom end of our claims. So Juneau is about 90 kilometers to the west of us. We're sort of south of Atlin, about 130K, 120K west of D. So we're in, I guess, the shadow of the Coast Mountain Range. Very unique opportunity here, and because of its relatively remoteness, there was a lot of companies that worked this. The original discovery was 1952 by Caminco. The pre-Kennecott company Kenco was in there in 58 or 59. Chevron was in there in the 80s. They did a big regional 100 to 200 kilometer long regional belt program, which were successful in identifying the high grade Golden Bear mine, which now we wrap around to the south. And I guess that's the one road access point that we have currently to the south end of the block, which is deactivated now. We're not using it now, but the main camp access is from Whitehorse and Atlin. And in fact, I've done it 3 times now. You can leave Vancouver in the morning and be in camp for lunch, which you can't say about a lot of exploration projects, especially given the location. So it's actually not bad. Yeah, we've got an airstrip and well-established camp there. It's pretty well set up, and it's opened up the the project from an exploration perspective. But it's these porphyry deposits are they're a challenge, and I think the unique thing about the Camp Creek porphyry discovery is that it took us about 10 years to figure it out, partly because the mineralization that got everybody there, the exposure, the alteration that attracted the geologists there in the early days, are these veins and high sulfidation breccia zones that they were drilling, and lots of drilling was done on those. And we did publish about a 21.5 million silver equivalent ounces on that upper part of the veins and stuff. But what we found out over the years as we were drilling and keep drilling, and as we pushed a few of the holes a little deeper, we started to recognize the porphyry potential here. That actually, no, these are porphyry style veins that we're seeing. We're starting to see these mineralized copper and moly fragments in the diatreme, which is an explosive event off the porphyry. So that we made some physical connections or indications there, rather, that suggests we should be drilling deeper. And this is a classic challenge in the mining business. Everybody wants to find something at surface, easy peasy, and away you go. However, the, I guess, persistence and tenacity and perseverance, we just kept pushing deeper and deeper. And I will even argue now, well, this year we drilled up one of our deepest holes, 650 meters, or sorry, 1,650 meters.
Wow.
Still in copper mineralization, and we published, I think it was over 1,500 meters of copper. It's not all continuous. There's a couple of sections in there that are these
Sure.
late post-mineral dikes that are non-mineralizing. They're actually cutting the mineralization, diluting it perhaps. But still, nonetheless, very long mineralization. Not too many people are drilling 1,000 to 1,500 meter holes into copper mineralization. So what we recognize that it's a big system, and we've got about a dozen holes now, deep holes in that sort of 1,200 to now to 1,600 plus meters depth. And where the zone, what we see is that the porphyry doesn't actually start till about 300, 400, 500 meters from surface. So that's why it wasn't found, is because it doesn't actually poke out of the ground. Although we had those veins and high sulfidation alteration mineralization at surface. So yeah, we got down to the porphyry now, and these things typically take 100 holes, 200 holes. There was a study that looked at what's it take to get momentum on a porphyry deposit in this part of the world, and it's something like 160 holes to get momentum. Like the well-known Red Chris mine, I think that was hole 320 or something. Pebble, which is a massive copper gold porphyry in Alaska, they're like hole 400 and something. GT Gold got really lucky; they got it in hole 9. And the momentum is when the momentum hole is when you get the big stock movement, the big valuation change, and then you basically have all the money you need to advance the thing. So we're not quite there yet. I would say we drilled these discovery holes, but we haven't seen the momentum hole yet. But again, we're a dozen holes into something that probably needs 100 or 200 holes in it.
Great. And so in terms of, sounds like a big boy project, having to drill some pretty deep holes, probably pretty costly. So that probably, that's a good segue into the next part I wanted to cover. And that's a bit of a strategic shareholder base. And maybe you could kind of talk a little bit about who's sort of invested in Brixton. And I think you guys have a fairly large financing that you're doing right now, which is very impressive. And again, a bit of a harder market. I guess it's the have and the have nots, and you guys are a have. So would you mind sort of covering, I guess, what you can speak about in terms of the shareholder base and your strategic sort of corporate investor?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're pretty excited to welcome BHP into the company as the largest shareholder now. So BHP is the world's largest diversified miner, and they took a 19.9% interest in Brixton. They wrote a $13.6 million check about a year ago now. So that's pretty exciting for us. Huge mining company taking an interest in what's Brixton's 60 million market cap company. So tremendous opportunity there for shareholders. We just feel like we're just getting started here. They recognize the potential of the scale of the project. It is a very large property. There's so many targets. We're starting to call this thing a multi-generational opportunity, because it's not just one porphyry. It's looks like multiple copper porphyry centers over a long period of geologic time. And yeah, we're still early days in the exploration in our sort of cycle of the development of a project, but we see an opportunity to, this kind of a project could run for multi-generations, and so we're starting to see that. BHP likes it. They're behind us. They've announced their pro rata support on this financing that we're doing. So we're pretty fortunate to have that support, and not only that, but we also have some, for the size of the company, $60 million company, having the world's largest miner as our biggest shareholder. We also have three billionaires, Eric Sprott, Rob McEwen, and Robert Friedland took an interest in Brixton when we struck the Hog Heaven deal in Montana. So pretty fortunate to have some very big mining names and as our largest shareholders. Crescat Capital is there as well. They're a big player in the junior mining space, so
Yeah,
quite supportive of Brixton, and they've been buying a lot of stock in the market as well. So yeah, it's fun times. I mean, the company's never looked so good. I know we're in a challenging environment right now, but this is when the opportunities are created in the mining space. You can
right,
buy a lot of companies right now, and I'll say Brixton's in that same boat. For what we have and what's there and the scale and opportunity in front of us, we're trading at a massive discount to, I believe, where we should be traded. So you're able to go in as it's tough for the companies. The issuers that have to raise money in this environment and advance your project and not get the reward you're getting. It's frustrating for us as issuers, but as an investor, this is like one of the best opportunities you have to go out there, and you're getting all these things. You can cherry pick the deals. Everything's on sale. I mean, back up the truck here, guys. Like this is fun times for an investor. You got to see the future of where metals and mining is going, and I think the metals and mining space has a very bright future with all this electrification movement
right,
happening. It's a real thing. Like it's critical minerals. I mean, what isn't a critical mineral out there? You could make a case for almost all these commodities. We don't have enough of them. We're not going to have enough of them. All these other countries are going nationalization. They're holding back. China's biggest producer of most commodities and consumer, and they start holding back commodities. And we've as Western countries, we've allowed the other countries to develop this infrastructure, and we've pushed our development offshore. Now we need to start taking it back and building back better, whatever you want to call it. We need to develop our own critical
right.
mineral chain in Canada and the U.S. and the Western world.
Yeah, so that's a great segue. Thanks for bringing us back to kind of the overall arching theme of the episode here. Kind of the transition to an electrified future. I was reading some stuff recently that if California, if everybody went to EV cars and just cars, they wouldn't have enough. They wouldn't have enough power. All sources of power generation, they wouldn't have enough to meet that. We're not talking about manufacturing. We're not talking about powering your house. We're not talking about anything. Just cars alone. Just some transportation. So pretty wild. In terms of I guess the opportunity for investors right now, copper I guess is one that's called sort of like Dr. Copper. It's kind of considered kind of a canary in the coal mine, so to speak, in terms of being a barometer of the health of the economy. And if we're going into what some think is a bit of a recession or softer sort of economic growth, that we might not have as much industrial activity. And so you see maybe, again, traditionally, you'd see weaker demand for copper. As such, we've seen kind of the copper price go down a little bit. But when you overlay kind of the short term with, I guess, the backdrop of the long term and this transition, do you have any thoughts in terms of let's maybe just talk about like copper and some of the other sort of battery sort of metals and energy metals? Do you think that that's really where kind of the opportunity is? And what are your thoughts in terms of sort of future demand?
Yeah, absolutely. Copper is key. And why is copper key? If you look at the periodic table of metals, there's a thing called electrical conductivity, and that is a metal that transports electricity. And silver's number one. All other metals are measured against silver and electrical conductivity. But if you go down the list, copper's number two. You go down the list again, it's actually gold is number three. And then aluminum is number four. And you can continue to go down the list. Most metals will conduct electricity, but the most efficient one and cost benefit is copper. So that's why we use copper for everything to move electricity. And yeah, we are going, you know, electrification is coming. So I think copper is going to play a big role in it. Right now, the copper market, there's a bit of a balance right now, and you could argue, yeah, there's some softness today, but the number of forecasts that I've seen and actual real measured demand against the supply of copper, we're talking 25, 26, where the significant something like a 300,000 metric ton of copper shortfall in only a few years away, and that gap is going to grow. The challenge is that you can't just turn on a copper mine. It takes decades to build these things. Copper deposits are generally large infrastructure builds. There are some higher grade, lower capex copper projects, and you do get copper as byproducts from other deposits. But really, the big porphyry copper deposits take, and like we talked about at Thorn, we've been at it for a dozen years now. We're still exploring and drilling. So these things take time to find them, and they take time to build them. And permitting is always a bottleneck to get these things built. So I think from an opportunity perspective, copper is a great place to be. I think positioning yourself now in the next few years for that run up. Yeah, whether we get to a recession or not, I mean, who knows? I think there's some weakness happening. We're seeing it now, but I think longer term, yeah, copper is a great place to be, and you could look at a lot of other commodities as well. And I'm a big gold fan. I think people argue, yeah, you want gold stored away in your vault for safekeeping. Yeah, that's a good thing too. But there is a lot of industrial uses for gold, and if you look at some of the work that's done by the World Gold Council on all these different technologies for gold, it's pretty amazing actually. I wasn't aware of the amount of gold that goes into space exploration. There's no space exploration without gold, so it's pretty interesting that it's quite a diversified metal really. So I think there's a lot of commodities I think that will play a role in the electrification. I think copper, silver, I think gold has a role to play in that. Certainly vanadium is an interesting one for these big redox batteries.
Right.
Vanadium is going to be a key for these big industrial scale batteries, because one of the things about all this electricity that's being generated is you don't want to lose that, so you want to store it, and charging up these batteries along the way just gives you more life out of the electrical generation.
Right.
So
Hey,
big future.
while we've got you, I don't know if you want to comment at all on, from a geological standpoint, on lithium. We've obviously heard a lot about kind of hard rock lithium, and kind of what's been going on in Quebec and James Bay and things like that. I guess just from my own sort of portfolio investing into this stuff, I've had a pretty high degree of success in being able to invest into startup lithium companies that have then turned into either near-term producers, or they get positive PEAs. It seems that it would be a much higher percentage of those companies that are being successful than maybe looking at some of the other hard rock metals, gold, copper, silver, things like that. Is there any relevance to that? Is that because we really knew where lithium was, and it was geologically sort of mapped, and we weren't really using it until like 10 years ago? Or is it just the nature of the geological, setting? Any comment on that?
Yeah, I would say that there's no shortage of lithium out there. Like there's a lot of lithium on this planet. The challenge is that the lithium market kind of turned on with this big push into battery technology, and lithium is a big component of the current battery technology. And my view is that you can make a battery out of anything. So what is going to be the battery of the future? I don't know, but there's some really interesting stuff coming out using like phosphate iron and a little bit of lithium that
Right.
are solid state batteries. I really like that because those things aren't going to blow up. You can't blow it up. You can't burn it. It's like, so
A
that
little
to me is
safer.
probably the place to go. And that the reason that the lithium market exploded was because there's just not enough lithium available. But as these companies advance, and I think that will change, and dynamics will change. And I actually am a big fan of the lithium brines. I think there's tons of lithium in the brines, and as you know, my geothermal background,
Yeah.
there's lots of in some cases they're actually generating power from the brines, and then they're using that power to extract the lithium, and then so you're making money twice on an opportunity. So I really like those kind of opportunities where it's not, some of the brines they have to spend a bunch of money to extract the lithium from the brines. Well, if you have a power source already, that kind of makes sense to me. Um,
Right.
and I think, yeah, we're going to use all sorts of different forms of electricity in the future. And um, one thing for sure is that as we grow as a civilization on this planet, we're going to need a lot of metals, and we're going to need a lot of sources of energy, and more specifically, a lot of sources of clean, green energy that is not causing pollution to us humans.
Right. So, a good point to bring up. So, metals are really key. Mining obviously has a bit of, not a lot of people are necessarily involved in actively watching mining sites. Maybe historically they haven't been the cleanest places. We've heard things with, poor reclamation and using chemicals that can, affect environments and things like that. Do you see, has there been any sort of like internal push for more sustainability in terms of the actual mining operation, how metals are extracted? Anything you can sort of comment on? Are we seeing like electric heavy mining equipment and things like that? Anything you can comment on about that?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think it's a really positive trend, and I think the mining industry up till the 70s really didn't have any consideration for the environment. They didn't really need to. It wasn't that big of a deal. But I would say since the 70s, the industry's done a really good job in turning things around, and especially recently, it's a big push on. Obviously, with electrification, you're seeing almost all future mines are going to be electric. There's going to be no diesel being burned underground, which never really made any sense, anyways. So I think there's big push for that. There's lots of interesting innovation, I think, that's being worked on right now that maybe they're just coming to market, like the iPulse, iRock technology. If you look at what are the costs going into developing a mine, well, there's a lot of cost in grinding and crushing of ores. So if you can reduce that by using this iRock technology, which is blasts of energy blasts that microfracture the rock, you're kind of ahead of the curve and you lower your costs, and you could generate better returns at lower cost ores, which the industry is facing. So I think there's huge opportunity for young generation of people to get into the space, just from how can we do things more efficiently, better, and more economically attractive. I think there's lots of opportunity there. And what I see as a big opportunity, because we're looking at these big porphyry systems, is a mining technology called block cave mining, which I'm surprised how many. I'm not an expert in block cave, but the way I look at it is, you can mine 1-2 billion tons of copper ore underground on a big underground operation. And why that's a benefit is that if you look at a lot of these big open pits, you've got a 5, 6, 10 billion ton deposit. Well, you maybe have 2 or 3 billion tons of ore, but you've got 3 or 4 billion tons of waste rock, and that has to go somewhere, and that becomes a long-term liability on the environment, and the company that owns it has to maintain um, the dams and stuff like
Right.
that. So if you have a block cave mine, you can have a very low impact on the surface environment, and I think that's really the future of mining is to do more deep block cave than perhaps open pits, and they're in some cases they're becoming economically competitive and actually lower cost in some cases for the open pit, mainly because you don't have to move 3 billion tons of rock.
Right. Well, I can tell you, interviewing quite a few people here recently, definitely there's more discussion on sort of like underground and other types of mining than open pit. Just with even permitting and NIMBY situation on my backyard, I think
Hmm.
people don't want a big open pit, even though it might be hundreds of kilometers from any sort of communities and things like that. But still, I think. From getting governments and communities on board. I think understanding the surface footprint is going to be a lot less, and then afterwards, once the mining activity has uh, once the mines been mined out over 15 years or so, then, like you said, it becomes a permanent reclamation project if it's
Mhm.
not done right. It sounds like there's some newer ways that I can do it a lot better with a lot better impact. So that's fantastic insight. I'm just sort of circling back here while we sort of like wrap up. Maybe you could kind of touch on what would be some like key reasons for people to consider investing into Brixton. Trades on the TSX Venture under the symbol BBB triple B. What are some top reasons they should invest in the company right now?
Well, I would say you have, a unique opportunity here where we're still extremely undervalued. We've yet to get that big hockey stick run that you get on a big discovery. And, I would say we're we're exploration. It's the discoveries in the process. We're building that, and it's coming, I would say. The reason why you should invest today is because the market has clobbered a lot of junior companies, including Brixton, and you're getting a discount on a project or a company that is has huge upside in front of it. We've got the Hog Heaven project that's being advanced by Ivanhoe Electric. Um, so good, exciting things could come from that. And I've been saying that our 25% of that project could be worth more than the company itself today
Wow.
as they advance it. So you're getting that as a bonus, and investing in Brixton, which is our flagship, where we have the support from the world's largest miner as our largest shareholder. So that's a huge endorsement. I think and that wasn't an easy in for us. It took about 3 years to get BHP across the line. So they've done a lot of due diligence. They see the opportunity here. So I think it's a unique situation. I feel we're extremely undervalued to where we should be even today. And my feeling is that this is a multi-billion-dollar company potential opportunity, and we're trading at 60 million market cap. So you might want to think about that and maybe join us in the journey of discovery here. I think there's a lot of fun stuff to come out of Brixton, and there's going to be some good things to come in the near future.
Hey, excellent. And just maybe touch on the size of the financing that you're kind of doing right now. Again, there's I think so far this year there was like one new IPO on the TSX. It's been a pretty tough like environment for sort of like capital raising. Not really that many even mining or exploration stage companies are really raising all that much money. What's the size of your financing that you're doing right now?
Yeah, so we just recently announced a $10 million financing, and I can tell you we're about a week into it now, and we're uh, well oversubscribed, which is pretty exciting. Like I say, it's been a tough market. Um,
Wow,
Brixton's raised,
tremendous.
and most of our financing has been non-brokered since inception, since 2010. We've raised about $78 million. So been successful in attracting capital, and you know, fingers crossed we'll continue to do so. But yeah, we're pretty happy about the level of interest that we're seeing.
Great. Any chance to rub shoulders and sit down and get some advice from some of those billionaires that you have on your cap table?
Absolutely, yeah. Sure, hope to keep the dialogue going, and hope. I mean, really, our goal is to make all these guys money. That's what the business is about, and we'll continue to keep grinding away and keep doing what we're doing. And yeah, best of luck.
Excellent. Well, maybe you could just dive in a little bit. Tell people what does an average day look like for you? Um,
Yeah, it's a lot of phone calls and emails. Some days I'm on the phone nonstop. There's still this thing called phones and communication. You gotta tell the story, and you have to assume that nobody knows about you. So we get on the road a lot. It comes in pulses where I'm on the road for maybe 2 or 3 weeks at a time. Come home for a couple weeks, go back on the road. Yeah, it's a lot of emails and phone calls. I've been doing a lot more of these interviews, stuff like this. Just getting out and telling the story. And I am a geologist, so I love the opportunity to get into the bush. So in the summertime, I like to get up and get myself up on the mountain and bang the rocks,
Great.
which kind of got me into the whole business in the first place.
Well, it must be pretty exciting when you're drilling some of that stuff, and you can probably spot some things from the core that maybe other non-geologists, sort of CEOs, can't. So that must be pretty sort of exciting to offer that type of value from the big seat, from your geological background. Um, so, anyways, how's your schedule coming up? I know there's like quite a few conferences and things sort of going on, and some of them are virtual, and thank goodness many more of them are in person in this day and age.
Mhm.
What's the slate of your calendar look like up until the end of the year?
Well, I've got to get back on the road, I think, before the end of the year. Probably head stateside in December and do some more one-on-ones. One of my missions was to, it still is, I guess, even pre-COVID, it was to get to cities where they've never heard of Brixton Metals. So we'd like to get out and tell the story to people that have never heard of us. And I think that's important to do. Doesn't really matter how big your company is, you still got to get out on the road and tell the story. And um, you know, engage with investors and potential investors. So that's the job of a CEO, is really out there telling the story as much as you can, and we continue to do that.
Is there anything else you wanted to kind of leave us with? Any final thoughts?
I would just invite people to have a look at our website, brixtonmetals.com. There's lots of good info in there. We try to keep it up to date as much as possible, and maybe follow us on Twitter and LinkedIn. And yeah, I mean, hey, give us a call anytime. Happy to chat to interested potential investors always.
Hey, Gary, we'd love to have you back. I think. Are you guys? Do you have any other sort of drilling going on? Or are there any catalysts that anybody should watch for in the next 6 to 12 months?
Well, we still have a half of our, just shy of 17,000 meters we drilled. Still half of those results are going to come to market between now and perhaps early part of the next year. And also, like I said, the Ivanhoe Electric group is drilling the plan to drill all winter in Hog Heaven. So that's definitely one to keep an eye on. We're pretty excited with what they're doing and what they're seeing. So there'll be some news flow coming out of that over I don't know if, depending on how much they're going to drill, but I think that's going to be a reasonably steady stream of news for the next year there.
Hey, excellent. Well, we look forward to having you back here in the next couple of months if you got the time for it. And again, thanks for the time. Thanks for telling us about Brixton and commenting on sort of the electrification and how key mining is. Thank you.